As you could see here, this is our latest version of our analytics platform, which is called CaseWare IDEA. It's the name of the company as well as the name of the solution that we offer. As you could see up here, it has a ribbon-based format, very similar to how you use Office 2013 today. So it's a very easy transition to come off Excel onto these analytics platform because the UI is the same look and feel that you're always used to. Now let's go ahead and import some information. I'm going to also open up an Excel file here, just a regular blank worksheet so I could show you some information. We're able to actually bring in data from any format typically available for output. We could bring in AS400, DBase, Access, Excel. We could connect directly to a system, bring in PDF documents, connect directly to SAP, bring in text or XML file. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to explain the engagement I'm doing for this client. As we know, there's a whole controversy going on in terms of travel expense and how they've been detected and how they've been used, et cetera, et cetera. So, excuse me, we're going to look for some outliers in there. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this text or this PDF document. So the client comes to me and says, Rohit, thank you for helping us out. We would like you to do a travel expense audit on our employee database and find any outliers if you can. So I say, perfect. I'd like the data in the following formats. Now they said, well, we can't give you any other format but the PDF. So now if I had to do this manually myself without using any analytics platform, imagine if I had to like copy this right here and then go Control-C and then drop it into Excel, and then we would say, oh, this came in as one row, so I need to, parse this data out, and, it'll take you hours and hours to do this, all right? With CaseWare Analytics, it's very simple. All we do is we tell the analytics platform, hey, I want you to read that data. And I already created a template, and I'll show you how that looks like. So I tell IDEA, can you read this data? And IDEA will come back and say, yes, Rohit, I could read the data. What do you want? I would say I want the PIN number, I want the employee database, I want the date, the amounts, where we traveled to, which airlines we used, and what was the purpose? Was it conference related? Was it training related? Was it work related? All right? And then I say, hey, bring this into the analytics platform. I click proceed to import. We call this travel report 2014. We're 2014 already. Time goes by quickly. Click on finish, and within a fraction of a second, you get the information imported. Now, why is an analytic platform such as IDEA so powerful? Well, it's a read-only access the moment that's brought into the database. So you can't just physically go here and say, oh my God, my DG's information's here. It should not be there. I would right-click and delete that. No, you cannot. It's a read-only access, okay? So if I go and say, all right, I need to do a few things. I want to see if what was the most expensive airlines that we use, or the most frequently used airlines, and what was the most expensive purpose we use, whether it was conference, training, or work-related. I simply just go under analysis. Let's start off with airlines, which airlines was frequently used. We just say, simply go under analysis, click on summarization, click on airlines, and say, show me the output. And then in a fraction of a second, I'm just going to sort this. And obviously, we're going to use Air Canada because we're a Canadian company, and we're going to use Air Canada for this case study. So Air Canada was the #1 vendor used for travel. If I click on it, it quickly shows me all of my transactions related to Air Canada. Now, as I mentioned, I also said, hey, let's do a quick summarization on the purpose and see what was the most expensive purpose. So we click on summarization, we click on purpose, on the amounts, click OK, and within a fraction of a second, the most expensive purpose was training with 57 units at roughly $107,000. If I click on it, it shows me all the information related to training. So quite powerful. Now, one of the cases that I also wanted to see is, Are employees, which are represented by our PIN numbers, claiming multiple travels on the same day? Might make sense if you're transiting between, say, Ottawa to Toronto, Toronto to Calgary, yes. But are they going Ottawa to Toronto, Toronto to London, London to Paris, Paris to Qatar, Qatar to Dubai, Dubai to Singapore, all under one heading? That might not be quite accurate or feasible, especially if there's only 24 hours in one day. So if I go and say, CaseWare idea, I want you to take a look at employees traveling on the same day and find me if you find any duplicates. Click OK, and idea will come back and say, I found 81 duplicates. Interesting, so there's 81 individual instances of a duplicate. Let's actually summarize that by employee and the date they traveled on. We'll say summarize by amount as well to find the unique instance of that travel. And as I mentioned, some of them might make sense. So if I click on, say, item number 2, where they went from Quebec to Calgary, sure, no problem. Going from Quebec City to the Stampedes, no problem. But does this make sense? This individual on this date traveled 9 times. Now, they went to Miami twice, New York, Amsterdam, Dakar, Calgary, Halifax, and Montreal. Now, I only have 24 hours within one given period, and even with the time zone difference, there's no way you could cover all that. And also, alternately, they seem to be like party cities as well. So is this person a DJ part-time and he's trying to claim travel expenses through the company? That's something maybe you want to look into. We could say save this, and we'll call it PIN 12205605. And then extract that out so we could further investigate that later on. So we could do that type of analysis. So that gives you a good perspective of the type of analytics we could perform simply by just looking at the information out of a PDF format. Now, I'm going to take the time here to do also what we love doing always is vendor analysis for my client. So I'm going to go ahead and import an Excel file. You're familiar with Excel, so am I, but my client provided me the information in an Excel format, and I'm going to use that format to bring the information in to our platform. So it's quite easy to do. Now, before I do that, one thing I do want to show here, let me just go into the folder structure real quick. One thing I want to show here is, before I even do that, which is the power of how smart idea is. The power of how smart idea is. So the idea, you might say, Rohit, I'm not familiar with the format of the information I'm bringing into the analytics platform. Can idea intuitively tell me what format it is? Absolutely it can. So let's just say I'm bringing in a series of transactions. So let's go ahead and close this here. I'm bringing in a series of transactions. It's an Excel file. I grab and drop that into IDEA, and IDEA will automatically queue itself and say, Mr. Rohit, this is an Excel file, what you're trying to bring in. Now please make your criteria selection. Well, the first row represents field names. To normalize the data, we'll say any empty numerical cells bring in as 0. And if you have multiple worksheets under the same workbook, you would just select this right under here and select them, and we'll bring it in one shot. So once I bring that in, automatically, it didn't even wait 2 seconds. It automatically brought in 1,200 records in a fraction of a second. And as I mentioned, I'm using Windows 8 platform, so it's compatible with any OS system you're using today. So now I'm going to bring in our vendor master file as well. And the vendor master file contains the vendor information related to each one of these transactions. So I'm going to go and say, bring this in, okay, and this is the traditional way. First row represents field names, and this is our vendor master file. Click OK, and within a fraction of a second, we're able to bring in all our vendor information, first name, last name, country, status, type of credit, account status, company information, and their related transaction. Now, if I had to relate each one of these vendors to their appropriate transaction in Excel, you would have to do copy-paste or create complex VLOOKUPs. In CaseWare Analytics, it's very simple. We just simply go under Analysis and say Join with our vendor master file. Our matching component is our vendor number, which is in both our databases, which are represented in both our databases. And I could tell IDEA, hey, just show me the matches, or show me where there are transactions but no vendors, so phantom transactions. Or show me where we have vendors but no transactional information, so potentially dormant vendor accounts number. But we'll say all records in primary for now. Click OK, and within a second you get the master file, which represents all of their transactions with their appropriate vendor information, without any complicated VLOOKUP files, etc., etc., etc. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this entity X. Any transaction over $5,000 requires a digital approval. And we could see that most of these transactions receive that approval. Well, if I had a million-plus record, which IDEA could easily handle, I'm not going to manually check this. I simply go under Direct Extraction and tell IDEA, I want you to look at the amounts field greater or equal to 5,000, and where the approval field is empty. There's nothing there. And if you're familiar with using Excel equations, this is a very easy transition in using IDEA equations as well. It's very logical. Now, I could also say, you know what, let's do another one. I'm interested in seeing all transaction greater or equal to $100,000, because we typically don't deal in that level of transaction, so show me that information. And I could do 50 different extractions in one pass. Once I click on OK, within a fraction of a second, it will show you the amount, and you can see here over $5,000, no approval, and here are my 12 transactions over $100,000. So it allows you to quickly find that information. Now, another very effective tool that has built into the analytics platform is the use of Benford's Law. For those that are not familiar with Benford's Law, it's looking at patterns of numbers and trying to predict and tell you that based on the Benford's Law mathematics, number 1 as a leading digit is occurring too often in this database. Number 1 as a leading digit occurs typically 30% of the time. Number 2 as a leading digit in a set of random transaction occurs 25% of the time, so on and so forth, where number 9 as a leading digit occurs less than 5% of the time. And CaseWare Analytics has built in the most advanced Benford's Law methodology. We have worked closely with industry experts such as Professor Mark McGreeny to enhance these type of tools, or this portion of the tool, and other portions as well. So first, let's take a look at the first 2-digit analysis. And not only that, IDEA also creates what we call a suspicious database, where it'll tell you where the outliers are. Before we jump to that, from the first digit analysis, we don't really see any outliers. Now, if you look at the first 2-digit, the first thing you'll notice are the bars highlighted in red. And if you take a look, highly suspicious databases are the ones highlighted in red. Now, remember how I said any transaction over $5,000 requires a digital approval? Well, if you take a look at these pattern of transactions here, they're right below the 5,000 threshold, being processed on a daily basis. And IDEA was able to pick this up and say, hey, this is a potential outlier. You might want to further investigate this item right here. And we mark that using yellow. Now, we also allow, as I mentioned, allow you to do advanced statistical methodologies such as correlation, trend, and time series. We could also do duplicate detection. So let's take a look at these transactions. Transaction IDs should be in a sequential format with no duplicates. If I go and say, take a look at the duplicate under transaction ID, and find me all the duplicates, IDEA will quickly identify 16 different duplicate items within the platform. We've done summarization. We could do stratification. We could create charts. We could age. We all love creating pivot tables. Well, in IDEA, we could definitely do that as well, where we could say take the amount for the countries that we deal with for the type of accounts we have. And within a second, you have your pivot table. If I want to take a look at all the checks in Canada, I double click here, and it gives me all my checks in Canada. Hey, look, it's that $5,000, less than $5,000 item. Go back to data. Now, as I mentioned, we could also do various different sampling methodologies built into the platform as well. We could go and say, let's do 30 random samples. We go here and say, give me 30 random samples. There's your 30 random samples. And we have several different sampling methodologies built in. We have attribute, random, systematic, stratified random. We have monetary unit sampling, and we have variable sampling as well. Now, excuse me, you might say, Rohit, this is great that we're able to analyze this information, but can we append our own calculated fields? Absolutely you can. Let's just say this amount represents pre-tax amount, and I need to apply a new field that calculates the tax. Very simple. I simply double click here, we append a new field, we call it new amount, and we say it's a virtual numeric, decimal place of 2, and we simply say, let's do amount times the Ontario tax amount, which is 13%. Click OK, click OK, and there you have it. There's your new amount with your calculated tax. You might say, hey Rohit, I need to isolate the first 2 digits of our vendor information because that represents the geographical region of these vendors. How do I isolate that? Very simple. I simply go in IDEA, we'll say geo region. It's a character field. We're trying to get the first 2 digits. And I just say from the leftmost side of our customer number, take the first 2 digits. And you'll see it right here. It just took out the first 2 digits. And as you can see, it's done in a very simple and easy way. All right. Now, as we near the end of our presentation, let's just say we took, everyone take a look at their watch, we spent a good 35 minutes on this presentation. Time is critical, billable hours are crucial. So we want to make sure we're effective and efficient with our time and our audits. Let's just say that I need to re-engage this and do exactly all the analysis that I just did right now next year for the same client. Before I end the project, I simply click on Project Overview, and it will graphically show me everything that I've done thus far in this project for this client. If I want to replicate this next year, I simply say create a macro, and I could say just automate everything you've done to get to this point, or in my case, I'll just say automate everything. Okay? I'm going to say create something called a visual script, where it gives you a visual layout of everything that you have done thus far for that client. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll call this CaseWare Project X. Save it. Okay? Now, let's just say my colleague did all this hard work doing all this analysis, but she deserves a well-deserved break and has gone to the Bahamas. I've inherited this client. I need to do the same analysis. I know that her analysis was correct. I just need to update the information with a new database. Well, next time around, I simply just go under macro. I ensure my new database is, or my raw file is within my project folder. I double click on CaseWare Project X, and it shows me everything that I've done thus far. All I have to do now is just double click on the import section and update the old file with the new file. Because the structure of the database still remains the same, it just has updated information. Now everything that I did for the last 30 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm able to replicate that in less than 30 seconds. As you can see here, it's going to go through every single one of those tests that I just did, replicate it through the analysis of my PDF document, Benford's Law, duplicate detection, everything. And as you see here, we're done. This is how effectively you can increase your efficiency in your analytics. It's not just on your first engagement, but every engagement you're doing going forward. Now, I also like to take a moment to say that we've also introduced in our latest version what we call Smart Analytics through the use of Smart Analyzer. You're able to go to Marketplace and purchase audit content from Marketplace for usage. I have already purchased one called Financial App, and that Financial App will allow me to do analysis on general ledgers, accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory, and fixed assets. So I'm just going to take a moment here to bring in a set of journal entries, a GL file directly into IDEA, and I brought that in very easily into the platform. And I go under Smart Analytics and I click on Select and Run. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up a series of tests I have available. If I click on General Ledger, it shows me what type of tests I have available for me out of the box. So I have duplicate journal entries, missing journal entries, entries posted on weekends, entries posted on specific dates. The 1st of July is a stat holiday in Canada, so who's posting GLs at that time or on that date? Specific time, why are people posting GL entries between midnight and 4 in the morning? So we could do all of these tests. Now before I could run them, I need to map them to my database. And everything in IDEA you only need to do once. You need to only do once because you're able to save it so you could reuse the content going forward. So I go and say I'm going to define the mapping, click OK, and it'll tell you, Rohit, before we could run these tests, we need all of these information filled out. Well, account number represents account num in my database. And I only need to do this linking once, okay? I've already done this, so I just go back to my database and say, here's my file that I already created for this client, click OK, and it populates my information. Once I click on Apply and Close, all of these red squares will turn to play buttons. Now, all I need to do is say, run these 2 tests, and it will go ahead and run that for me. So if you go and take a look at, we'll just give it a second here, and you'll see there's a check mark done here. If I click on duplicate journal entries, if you go to the bottom, it'll tell you the, excuse me, the audit objective we've tested, the total number of transactions tested, and the amount of duplicates found. So if I click on duplicate 196 items, it shows me my duplicate journal entries. But not only that, ladies and gentlemen, we're able to go as far as also go under what we call result and reporting and tell IDEA, hey, I want you to create a custom report for the results that I found in these tests. And click on Create, and once you do that, it will generate a Word document or a PDF on exactly what you found, the audit objective you've tested, and also what fields were used and the results we found. Now we understand that each accounting firm might have their own approach to audit analytics and the way that you do your test. We're able to provide you with a service where we create an app for you with your audit methodology built into it. So all your team members have to do is select them and then run it, and it generates the reports for them. That's how advanced data analytics has come in a span of 10 years. And we keep on expanding, adding new features, and potentially growing this to a whole new thing in the coming years. And we are very excited about these new initiatives that we've built into our platform. So going back to our presentation here,